UFC legend Robbie Lawler once said, "If you look at all aspects of all sports, everything comes down to fundamentals." I'd say the same thing applies to life. Today, we have the Honorable Judge John Pacheco, who honed the fundamentals and built skills upon them on his way to the most successful and fulfilling of careers.
Why do you want to be a lawyer? And I'm like, because I want to help people. He goes, don't you care about making money? And I said, the money will come. If you do well, the money will come. That's not my first priority. My first priority is to help people. The money will be there. Having integrity is so important because once you lose that integrity, you become nobody. You lose character, you lose credibility and everything. I love people. I really do. I tell my kids there's something good in everybody. And if you can draw that out of them, they'll feel better, you'll feel better, and you will make a connection. 20 years of practice and 20 years as a judge, what I was able to understand is if you can connect with people, you're going to be successful.
UFC legend Robbie Lawler once said, "If you look at all aspects of all sports, everything comes down to fundamentals." I'd say the same thing applies to life. Today, on Art of Purpose, we have the Honorable Judge John Pacheco, who honed the fundamentals and built skills upon them on his way to the most successful and fulfilling of careers. In practice, Judge Pacheco was known as one of the best trial attorneys, and during over 20 years on the bench in San Bernardino County, he was known as one of the best judges in California, receiving numerous Trial Judge and Judicial Officer of the Year awards from many organizations, including the Consumer Attorneys Association of Los Angeles and the American Board of Trial Advocates. On this episode, Judge Pacheco will share with us his incredibly inspiring journey from an impoverished and immigrant background in the 1960s to his collegiate baseball career, trial attorney, and a protector of justice and fairness as a judge. For Judge Pacheco, it's always been about people, helping people. Judge Pacheco, welcome to Art of Purpose, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Kenny. That was a fantastic introduction. I like to call myself just a regular person. I don't like people to even know my position. To me, it's more important that they like me for who the person I am in my heart and my soul, as opposed to any titles or anything like that. And so I have boat friends, and to this day, many of my boat friends have no idea what I do, other than they think I work for the state or I used to work for the state. But I do appreciate that very nice introduction.
No, absolutely. And I think, maybe getting ahead of ourselves a little bit here, but that's what I love most about you. And I think what listeners will connect with you most is that what matters to you is being a good person in character and integrity. And that is exactly the type of people that we want on the bench, the people that we want administering justice and fairness. And you've certainly done that throughout your career. So thank you for your service.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. All right. And before we dive into this episode, we just want to thank all of our listeners. Remember to like, subscribe, comment. We have YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Thank you to everyone who's engaged and dropped a comment. Thank you for all the messages, direct messages, emails, messages on LinkedIn that you've sent to us. They're really encouraging. And we want to hear from you. Is anybody that you'd like to hear, anybody whose story you think we should reach out to and highlight in our podcasts? Again, like, subscribe, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Thank you for joining us on this journey. And with that, let's get into Judge Pacheco's journey. All right, Your Honor. So we know you as this amazing someone who has administered justice on the bench, judge, and this prestige that comes with it. And yet, there is a background to all of that. And before all of that, before the accolades, before the awards, before the career as an attorney, you were just a young boy that had come over, whose family had come over from Mexico. And I want to ask if you could give us a little bit about your background, your family's story, and paint a backdrop for us so that we can all, and our listeners can see and understand, wow, this is someone who has reached the highest level that we can in our profession, and these are the circumstances that he met when he was growing up.
Well, thank you, Kenny. First of all, some of my story is going to be very emotional.
Yeah.
because the things that our family, the trials and tribulations that our family went through. I was actually born in Riverside. My father was born in San Gabriel Mission in 1903. Wow. My mom immigrated from Mexico. She was unfortunately subject to spousal abuse at a time when she had 4 children in Mexico. Her first child she had at 13, her second at 15. Back in the day, that was not that uncommon. Yeah. But because she was being abused so badly, both verbally and physically, she was befriended by a very nice lady who said, you need to remove yourself from this situation. Try to come to California. There's a lot of hope. There's a lot of work. And I think you would do great. My mom at that time had a 6-month-old child and a 4-month-old oldest of the 4, my brother. And so she had no money. She had to figure out how she was going to travel over 1,000 miles to get to the border. And the sad thing, which I did not know until I became an adult, she actually left one of her children behind, my sister, who was 6 months old at the time and was not able to travel as well as the other ones, because the other ones were able to walk. So that was her journey. Yeah. And she made it to the border, and she rented a little shack. It was just a straight little shack, less than 10 by 10. And that's where her 3 children and her were living. And early in the morning, she would cross the river and get over and go work at a coffee shop. And she would work there from 6 in the morning till about 10 at night. And at that time, my oldest brother was 5 years old. She used to lock up the brother and my 2 sisters, and they would have to fend for themselves for the entire day, because that was the only way they could make it.
Safety, yeah.
And so it was very difficult for a 5-year-old to be the man of the house. And but that man ended up being my dad, my second dad, because he was a lot older than I was, and my dad was a lot older than him. But at the coffee shop, she met my father, who ran the coffee shop, and my other uncles. One had a trucking business, and the other one owned an adjacent bar. So it was a cafe and a bar. So that's how my mom met. And then, so they had the 3 children. I never knew, to be honest with you, I never knew they were my half brothers and sisters, because we all grew up, we're all just full of love in the house.
That's beautiful.
And so growing up was great. I had 3 older sisters and an older brother, and my sister immediately older than me, Yolanda. I think you might know her. She was the first of my father and my mother, and my father was 50 years old when he had her. He was 53 when he had me, and 57 when he had my young brother. Yeah. But even though he was older, he had never been married. I think he liked to have fun. But we moved to Riverside.
And then you met your mom, right?
No, they moved to Riverside, and I was born in Riverside. My sister was born in Riverside. I was baptized in Fallbrook. And it was just like I said, I never knew we had a half brother, half sister until I got older to appreciate that. Yeah. And the sad thing that I never knew, there would be times when I was with my mom, just the 2 of us, and we'd be watching. She loved to watch I Love Lucy. We'd be watching that, or Felix the Cat. She loved Felix the Cat. Yeah. And all of a sudden, she'd start crying. And she would say in Spanish, que Dios me perdiga, that perdona, that he forgives me. And I kept saying, what, mother? What, mother? And it wasn't until older in life when she had a stroke and she was actually in a convalescent home, a boarding care facility, and we had gone to the house that I found all these letters from my older sister who I never got to meet. She used to write letters as a little girl until she was 18 and was always keeping my mother in touch and letting her know. My mom always had a candle lit and always had a picture of a little girl who I didn't know who it was. It was my sister. And so having that, finding that out to me, it really like, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it. What happened? But I was blessed to have a great mom, and my father was great. They have second and third grade education, but they always pushed education. Basically saying, if you want to get somewhere, you need to get your education. And that's one thing they always supported me on. And so it was a great upbringing, very, very poor. My dad was a construction worker. And when work was slow, we would go up to Delano and we would be with the farm workers.
Kern County.
Yeah, we used to, I was only 2 or 3 years old, but they used to pick grapes and whatever they could. And we used to live, I thought it was a great thing. I'm out, camping. I'm in a tent.
Right. You don't know any
and my
better.
mom would make the best coffee in the morning over a campfire. And I go, this is life. And then she would get the night's tortillas from the night before, and she would cut them up and put them in a cup of coffee with me. And that was my sopa. That was my breakfast. And I thought, this is the best. I was loving life. And not knowing, not knowing. But as I got to be like in the second and the third grade, I started to notice that, we didn't have very much. And I remember that I was only in the second, third grade, but I used to wear my father's size 9 shoes, which were old construction shoes. And that's what I used to wear. And I remember the kids used to kind of make fun of me. And I'm like, okay, but that's all I have. And we didn't play soccer back then. We had this game. It was called kickball. And the kickball took place on the basketball court. And so I love sports as whatever I knew about sports. And I used to kick the ball further than anyone. So the kids would see me with these big shoes. So the kids started wearing their father's shoes, thinking that that's going to help them kick the ball further.
I love that.
And
you turned it into a cool thing.
I mean, I certainly didn't intend to, but it just happened to work out that way. That's what happens in life. A lot of times you take a certain path, whether you have a choice or don't, and sometimes something good comes out of it. Even though it might be a path that you don't really want to go to.
Absolutely.
But like my mentor, and I'm sure we'll talk about him later, Florentino Garza would always tell me, John, from every bad thing, something good will come out of it. So.
It sounds like, even as you're talking here, that's been a through line through your life as well, right? That idea, that mentality that no matter what's in front of you, a good thing can come from it.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today. I want to share with you that this episode is brought to you by the law office of Kenny S. Ramirez. Now, life can change in an instant. Whether it's a car accident that wasn't your fault, a slip and fall in a grocery store, or even the tragic loss of a loved one. And the aftermath can feel overwhelming. You might be dealing with trying to get medical treatment, medical bills, missing work, calls from the insurance company, or just the stress of not knowing what to do next. That's where we come in. At the Law Office of Kenny S. Ramirez, you have a team, a family of accident attorneys who are here to give you back your time and peace of mind. We're here to help you get the maximum compensation you deserve so you can focus on healing and getting back to what matters most to you, your life, your family, your future. If you or someone you know needs some guidance and support after an accident, click the link in the description below for a free case evaluation. You'll speak with our team and we'll help you get your life back on track. And we're committed to being by your side every single step of the way. No matter life's challenges, you don't have to face it alone. We're here for you. Now let's get back into the episode.
Correct. And the other thing is the beauty of family. We were so close. And yes, we were poor, but we were so close. And there was, even though, sometimes there wasn't a lot of food, my mom, people would say my mom could make the best food out of weeds. She could cook weeds, and they were known as verdulagas. And when it would rain, we'd go pick them, and she'd mix them she had a pound of meat, and she'd put them in all these verdulagas and chili. It was the best. Fresh tortillas. It was like, I didn't know. To me, it was the best.
It was a feast.
So our family was very, very close. We fought. My sister and I would fight, but we were very, very close. And that helped me. It supported me to help me to move forward and try to do better. There was, like I said, there were some down times, and there were times when people would tell me, you know what, you're just going to be a worker. You're going to be a laborer all your life. So don't try to go to college. You're just wasting your money. You're wasting your time. But I wanted to do better. I wanted to try to move out of the barrio, which we lived in. We were living at the time in Bloomington, just a few blocks or a few exits up, because I went to Bloomington High.
Yeah. And so your parents are, and first of all, thank you, Judge, so much for sharing this and opening your story and your heart to us here. I know it's something that will touch, I can tell already, our listeners. And in thinking about you growing up and education, how your parents, you said, really stressed education. And as an immigrant, coming from an immigrant family myself, I know that that's big, right? This is how we are going to improve our lot in life.
Correct.
Right? And yet you're also facing what other people are telling you, that you're never going to make it out. Don't pay attention to it. You're just going to be a laborer the rest of your life. Construction, picker, whatever it is, that's what you're going to do. Can you talk to us a little bit about, you mentioned how important family was as well, and how family was along that journey, right? Were you, we've had, our guests, some have been great students, some have not been great students, and it doesn't really matter where you come from or what it is, right? You can still achieve your dream. What sort of was your background as you were going through school, and your parents' influence over that, and to get over what everybody was saying?
Right. Like I said, my parents always pushed education. And so I'm going to tell you this little story because I talked about how close we were as a family. I'll never forget my very first day in school. I got on a bus. I had never been on a bus in my entire life. And my mom was there, and she was crying. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, where am I going? So the bus drives us to the elementary school. And I'll never forget this elementary school. You get off the bus, and there's steps that go down to the school, literally about 20 steps. And I thought I was going to hell. I had no idea. Yeah. I'm like, where am I going? Yeah. My mom's abandoned me. Yeah. What am I going to do? I started crying. Luckily, a teacher was nice. It's okay. And she brought me down, down these steps. And it was just very traumatic for me. But I also said, I need to do well. And I'll never forget the very first day after this whole crying episode, being out in recess, and I saw two kids fighting. And oh my gosh, I'd never been involved in a fight. Yeah. And so I saw this fight, and I was like, they were fighting, throwing fists. These are little kids throwing fists and biting each other and scratching each other. Yeah. I freaked out because I had never seen anything like that. But in the long run, I kept with my studies. When I was in first grade, I was top of my class. Second grade, I was second in my class, and it really bothered me because I would try hard because my mom and dad would say, education, you got to do good, you have to do good. And so I remember that, and I got like really frustrated, and I remember this little girl, I think her name was Elizabeth. She was just so smart. Yeah. and she spoke eloquently, and I was just like, how can I possibly be that? Yeah. And so So as I got older, I got more involved with sports. I got more involved with cute girls, and so I kind of let that
part of
that
you.
push do well in school. And so when I got into high school, I wanted to play baseball like someone else I know. That was my dream.
Yeah.
I wanted to play baseball, and so I would do anything I had to just get a passing grade. And then my coach, Mr. Lee, Don Lee from Bloomington, he took me as like a son. He bought me my very first glove because I couldn't afford a glove. And he would take me to baseball games. He would take us, with several of us. And he taught me, he made me see things I'd never seen before. And I thought it was the greatest thing. And so I wanted to be a baseball player.
Yeah,
That was what I wanted to be. But there was an incident that happened when I was about 13. And I don't know if you've heard this before.
Yeah.
But we didn't have trash service.
Yeah.
And we had this old truck, big one-ton truck. We used to take it once a month. We used to go to the dump. And so we'd load up all our trash on there. And we were headed out. We just left our house in Bloomington. And my dad pumped the brakes to the stop sign, and the brakes were gone. And he was trying to downshift. And long story short, he rolled into the intersection going about 3 or 4 miles an hour. And there was this big, huge, full Robinson Ready Mix cement truck coming down about 30 miles per hour. And he just didn't even try to avoid hitting us.
Yeah.
He plowed into my side, crushed the cab, and then he claimed that he had all these injuries, and he ended up having back surgery, and the workers' comp people came after my dad for $95,000.
My goodness.
Where are we going to get $95,000? And so what we used to do, I'll never forget this, every weekend we'd go out looking for junk, scrap metal, and trying to make the extra dollars to make our monthly payment. And I remember doing that over and over every year, trying to, make ends meet. And while we didn't have insurance, my dad paid everything, but not with a price to pay. I mean, he had to borrow money and everything, but it was something that I felt, that was the first time that I felt there was some type of an injustice there. But the other one happened when I was in high school, was my uncle. He was in a crosswalk, and he got hit by a car, and he got hurt bad. Both of his legs were broken. And he had a severe concussion. He had a punctured lung, fractured ribs. He was in the hospital for 3 months before he died. And the lawyer that represented him, the maximum at that time was a $15,000 policy. And I remember that the lawyer took the $5,000 fee, and then they paid $10,000 for the medical, and my uncle got nothing at all. And I thought to myself, that just didn't seem right. I mean, my uncle was hurt. He was in the crosswalk. He should have received something. So I felt that was an injustice, and I felt that something needed to be done and educate people and teach them, hey, you have certain rights, that you can do certain things. So those are the two things that kind of they were like a little claw in my side that kind of bothered me about the system.
Sure. And I mean, up until then, you have these two moments. One, I think, as you were beginning high school, and then the other one in high school. Up until then, had you ever even considered hey, I want to be a lawyer, or had that crossed your mind at all?
No. But my mom, because I always would argue with her, she'd always chase me with the broomstick, and she'd say a dirty word in Spanish and call me licenciado sin papeles, meaning a lawyer without papers.
Okay.
And she, because I was always arguing about everything. I just felt, I don't know, I'd figure out a way. And my sister's the same thing. I used to argue with them. So It was interesting. So
Yeah.
to speak.
So they sort of identified some skill set that you had that would be good with being an attorney. And it wasn't until you experienced these injustices in your life and to your family members that you started connecting perhaps this idea of like, hey, there's something missing here, right?
Yeah.
It's something that should be done.
You know, I wish I could describe the feelings that I went through, seeing my uncle who died, how I felt so bad. It hurt me so much because I loved him a lot. And then my father having to struggle through this time. And it was so difficult. And it just really took a toll on me. It left, like I said, a big claw in me. And yeah, that was a big thing. But I really never thought about really being a lawyer. I wanted to be a baseball player.
Right.
And it wasn't until I started to say, hey, you know what? Maybe I could do more.
Yeah.
I was, I guess, selfish because I love sports. I wasn't really thinking about my family, so to speak.
Beyond that, sure.
But you get older and you start realizing my family's what got me here. Had it not been for their support, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
And that made me think, hey, wait a minute. I need to give back to my community.
Sure.
And if I have to do it the rest of my life, I feel good about it.
Yeah.
When I started law school, I know we're jumping ahead. Professor Dixon, who interviewed me, he said, so why do you want to be a lawyer? I said, because I want to help people. And he says, okay, that's good. That's nice. That's a nice gesture. But really, why do you want to be a lawyer? And I'm like, because I want to help people.
Yeah.
And he's like, be honest, be sincere, dig deep in yourself and tell me truthfully why you want to be a lawyer. I'm like, because I want to help people. I said, that's what I want to do. He goes, don't you care about making money?
Yeah.
And I said, the money will come.
Yeah.
If you do well, the money will come. That's not my first priority. My first priority is to help people. The money will be there. And you know what? It's not about money for me. And he told me that was the first time in 10 students that he had interviewed that didn't say, I want to make money.
Yeah.
And it was it kind of took me aback because I thought there'd be a lot of people out there trying to help the community, trying to help their family, trying to go back and, hey, they got me here. Now I got to go back and help them.
It's interesting you say that because I love that that was your reaction, right? Wait, they're not also thinking the same thing,
Right?
Because it's our background, right? It's our lived experiences that make us who we are to a large degree and prepare us and give us even a unique perspective, right? And so sometimes we could be looking at our situation and go, yeah, I don't have the same advantages that person XYZ has, right? But those same experiences that we're going through right now are what give us that different perspective that is necessary as we move ahead and forward, and we can help other people. And clearly, your family, everything that you experienced, those situations, helped form this individual who was looking to help people, right? And so I want to, before we move into law school and your career, I want to talk about one more of those situations, and you alluded to. Generally, it's just baseball, right? And I know, I get it. I still want to be a baseball player when I grow up. I tell people all that all the time. I love baseball, but what things that you learned from baseball, and I do know, and I do want to say this and put it out so people know just how much of a player he was, right? Judge Pacheco went to Cal Poly Pomona on a full ride and played for Coach John Scalinas. Who was a legend? Who's a legendary coach? Won also the Division II National Championship during his time there.
1975.
1975, right? And by the way, you can catch Judge Pacheco on some scenes, right? On the Netflix's documentary. What is it?
Battered Bastards of Baseball.
That's right. So check it out.
Right.
Because you did play for some time on that minor league team, right?
Correct.
I read this quote, and I want to read it to you, and just want to ask for your follow-up on it. This is your quote, and just tell us what it is that you meant here. Life is about fundamentals. You get your fundamentals down to where it becomes routine. You don't have to think about it. Then you can focus and sharpen your skills. Why are fundamentals so important, and even before skills?
That is a classic John Scalinas lecture to us. I can't tell you how many hours we would practice, three hours a day sometimes, and 2 of the hours were working on fundamentals. The pitcher was taught how to. He actually had a door frame, and the pitcher, if he was right-handed, would start from the top of the right and would have to end up the bottom left.
Nice.
And fundamentals. Then he would teach us on the running how to do all these things. And after a while, once you get your fundamentals down, it's kind of like driving. You get your fundamentals down, then it just becomes second nature, and you will react because you got all these fundamentals down.
Mm-hmm.
And it's critical. And I learned from him, Scalinas, you can use that lesson in life. Mm-hmm. You learn, you get your own life together, you get your fundamentals, and you get your priorities in life in, and as time goes on, it's easier because you've been there and done that. Mm-hmm. And some of the podcasts that I've heard you talk about or that I've listened to, Kenny, are about making strides or steps to the unknown. Mm-hmm. And people used to tell me that is the biggest fear, the fear of the unknown. Mm-hmm. And as much as the word fear brings fear to me, I take that challenge.
I love that.
I want to experience. I may fail, I may not make it, or I might make it. Mm-hmm. But I want to take that step forward and see what it's like. I want to step out of the barrio. Mm-hmm. It's so easy to sit there with my friends whom I love. They're like my brothers and sisters, and sit there and drink beer with them and play cards and just have barbacoas and all this stuff, which is great. Don't get me wrong. It's family. It's beautiful. But at the same time, it's like you need to move on. Let's do something in your life. Do something so you can come back and help the community. Mm-hmm. So that's what I was always thinking of doing once I became a little more mature, instead of thinking about myself of trying to be a baseball player. And
I love that concept of stepping into the unknown, and there is fear, right? Because when people talk about courage, it doesn't mean that you don't have fear. Is that there's fear and you act nonetheless, because there can't be courage unless there is fear in the first place, right? And so I love this idea of even in that stepping into the unknown and going for it. And speaking about fundamentals, what are some fundamentals that you think in your life have been helpful and have served you throughout your life and your career as well?
Number one, family. 100% family. My wife, she always believed in me, always. Even like I said at a speech, sometimes I was at a point where I didn't even believe in myself. Yeah. But she was there to support me, just like, and she gave me the courage. Mm-hmm. So having family, having people that support you, and that's the beauty of it. If you have the support system, you can go so much further. Yeah. And doing things like this helps people who are in need, that need support, can say, hey, it's out there. Mm-hmm. You can get it. Your family, your friends, it's there. Yeah. And use it. There's an old saying from John Wooden book, and the strength is the wolf is the strength of the pack, and the pack is the strength of the wolf. And if you think about it, if it's a lone wolf, it's not that strong. But when that wolf's with the pack, becomes much mightier. Yeah. So when you have that support, you are more emboldened. You're willing to take more of a challenge because you have some support. Mm-hmm. And other, like we talked about, other people growing up, they had support financially, business. They had it all, and so to them it was a second nature. To me, it was I had to work for it. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. My family was always there to help me, but for me to go forward was a big step sometimes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you for that. And it's one of those that we subscribe to as well. Family, how important that is, and sometimes people may not have that family support in their own lives, and yet can find it through friends can find a creative family as well, right? And certainly when they have their own family, be able to instill those values exactly that you're talking about for their children as well. Are there, following up just on this idea of fundamentals, are there any other fundamentals that you think are helpful just across industries, whether it's about character or something that's practical for you that you see?
I think having integrity is so important, because once you lose that integrity, you become nobody. You lose character, you lose credibility and everything. Having integrity is so important, and trying to be consistent in what you do. I was actually growing up, even when I was a law clerk, the staff would always, Monday they'd go eat here, Tuesday here, and I was so against that. I didn't want that. I wanted it to go wherever I felt like going. But yet, in hindsight, I see it that being consistent can help you. It's kind of like fundamentals. Yeah. You do them and you do them and you do them. It becomes second nature. And it took me a while. I was a rebel that way, but I learned, and it is being consistent. Simple thing. I know I'm a little fat, but I've worked out my entire life, and that's what gives me the energy in the morning. I'm at the gym anywhere from 5 to 6:30, and I work out. I sweat until I'm ready to pass out. It cleanses my body, and I feel like I'm a whole new person when I go shower and I'm ready to go. It is just, for me, that's what is, again, consistently working out 5 to 6 days a week is just, for me, keeps me going. And again, having a great family support. My wife is just, she's been the best.
Yeah, I know her as well, and she's wonderful. You mentioned integrity. It's funny because I have that here because I have always known you, and you have a sterling reputation as a man of integrity.
Thanks.
And I wanted to just talk about that a little bit more, because I do know of a story, and I would ask if you could tell us a little bit about it. And we don't have to say the names or anything, but being a man of integrity and standing up for your beliefs and what is right, even when it's something that is not helpful to you, right? Or you think that it's going to be, even when it seems that it could blow back on you, but it's the right thing to do, right? A lot of times people think that in order to advance in careers, they have to play the game and they have to sacrifice some of their values or morals or integrity in order to be able to get ahead. I know of a story, and I'd ask for you to tell us a little bit about this, of a situation where with a client, they were partners at a firm that you were in were trying to get that individual to take a $50,000 settlement, and you didn't think that was the right thing for that individual. And you stood up for that individual, and I'd ask if you could tell us that story, because I think to some degree that says a lot about who you are in terms of integrity and standing up for your beliefs.
Well, I remember the case very, very clearly. I loved the firm I was at. We had 7 offices. We had 53 lawyers. Very reputable firm. But it just seemed as though their top priority was money and not the client. And anyone that knows me, I have probably said that 100,000 times. It's not about you. It's not about your law firm. It's not about the money. It's about your client. And so my client was a wonderful lady who suffered a horrible fall, ended up having TMJ surgery, ended up having neck surgery, ended up having permanent tinnitus, ended up having traumatic brain injury. And it was all as a result of a simple trip and fall in the city of Upland. And my firm did not like trip and falls because they're difficult to win. And it was an issue about whether it was even the raise in the sidewalk was over an inch. And so they really were trying to get me to get my client to accept a small amount of money. But the fact was, there was a 998 that was served on my client It was for $25,000.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't for $50,000.
Okay.
But at a partnership meeting, and I was not a partner at the time, they came to the conclusion that we needed to get this resolved because it's going to cost a lot of money to try this case. So they leaned on me, the partners, and said, you need to get the client in. We need to try to get her to agree to an amount, and then we're going to try to get that amount. And so brought her in, and she was listening to them. They told her how difficult of a case it was, and that trip and falls are very difficult to win. And so they tried to say, well, I think you should take $50,000. And she's like, what? After everything that I've been through? Yeah. And this was an extremely intelligent lady who had really taken a deep dive. And as a result of all the medications, she got addicted to pain pills. And she had to go through detox on top of everything. And so the contention from the other side was that she was faking her injuries. Okay. She was making this all up so that way she could continue with her cocktail that she was getting, her medication. So at that meeting, we had her sit in my chair, and she finally listened to me. She's like, John, what would you do? And I looked at my partner, at then the partners, and I said, I wouldn't take it. Yeah. And
I can imagine how angry they were there.
They were not happy. Yeah. But, it was something, honestly, it was about her. Yeah. It wasn't about the firm. It was about her. Yes, we're going to have to spend some money to try this case. And we did. We went to trial, and of course, they insisted one of the partners co-try the case with me, who had no knowledge about the case. And after him trying to take on one witness, I told him to sit down and shut the F up, because you have no knowledge what you're doing. That's how bad it was. The case, yeah. Yes. And luckily he listened to me, and I said, I'll tell you what, I'll let you cross-examine the doctor. Yeah. And he did a great job, but I did the rest of it. And this was a 2-week trial. Well, actually a 10-day trial. Every night when I'd get back to the office, I had a stack of anywhere from 20 to 30 files that were not my files that I had to work on.
They're just being difficult.
I would get there at 5:30, and I would work on those files till about 8:39, and then from 9 to 1 or 2, I work on the trial.
It's like they were punishing you for having done this.
They were, and I said, you know what? That's okay. I'm going to have to do this. You're going to have to do it. I wasn't happy about it. Getting home at 2 a.m. and getting back up at 6 to work out. It was difficult, and that was one of the things that made me think maybe this firm is not the right fit for me. And it was during that trial that I met a great person. Alois Reyes is the one that referred me, and anyone that lives in this community knows who Alois Reyes is. She said, John, you need to go talk to Florentino Garza. Yeah. And so this is during the trial, and I went to talk to him. I said, they were really pushing me, and this is what's going on. He says, well, do you want to try cases? I go, yes, I want to be a trial lawyer. Yeah. And he goes, well, work with me. You get plenty of cases. So I finished that case, and I had already actually left the firm, and they came out with a judgment of $1.475 million. And the firm, the old firm, was so ecstatic. They were jumping up and down. They were clapping. Of course they were. Everything. I felt like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, And I'm thinking, but you should be doing this for your client, on all your clients. Yeah. This is why we became lawyers, where we have an ethical obligation to help them. And so going to Tino was just the complete opposite, because he would try every case if he had to, because it was all about the client. And that's what he always said. Because we're here to help. He used to call them the deranged, the people who haven't had the opportunity to have a good life and it's been taken away from them. And he goes, this is what we do. And this is how we help them. And so he was my mentor. He was everything to me because I learned so much from him. Yeah. And he was the one that told me, look, one of the things you have is your integrity. And you're going to get, when I got appointed, he told me, you're going to get a lot of pressure from the community, from the public, because your rulings may not be popular, but you have to do the right thing. And you're going to run into a lot of adversity, but you need to do the right thing, no matter what. Because once you fold and you give in, you're a different person. Yeah. And he said, always remember that. Always remember that. And he said, you're also going to know this. In the practice of law, there's two types of lawyers. There's lawyers that try cases based on the facts, and there's lawyers that try the case based on the facts that they make up. And we are not that type of lawyer. We will always try the case based on the facts because that's what we do. That's our integrity.
Yeah. Wow. And it's certainly, Tino Garza obviously is not someone who I had the opportunity to meet, but his name echoes and reverberates throughout Southern California and certainly here in the Inland Empire. And he identified very clearly, I think, your love for trying cases and also the integrity that you have and help nurture that as well, right? Because I know you consider him to be your mentor and
100%.
Yeah.
And after work, we would always go and have a drink. And I wrote so many notes on napkins. I used to write these notes because he gave me these little tidbits of wisdom. And when he passed away and we were at an ABOTA meeting and honored him, and I did a speech, and I looked out in the audience, and there were so many lawyers there that he had mentored. And so I said, I want us all to have a Tino moment. Everyone here has met Tino one way or the other, and I want you to think about that time when you met him, what he did for you or what he didn't do for you. Think about Tino Garza. And so we had what was known as a Tino moment. And a lot of people came up after. They're like, oh my gosh, you really, because we're all caught up and working so hard and everything, but you stop and you back up a little bit and you're like, oh my gosh, I remember Tino helped me do this, or he did this, he recommended that, or he found this expert for me. And he was phenomenal. He was a mentor to our community. He really was. And what I liked about Tino, it was never about Tino. It was about you, Kenny. It was about you, Sharon. And he would learn more from you guys than and that's what he would look up to. And it's biblical in that, you give thanks to other people because those people are the people that get you where you're at. It's not about you. It's not about you. You give thanks to the people that got you here. And it may be your client. You may get a great result, but it's because your client got the bad result, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that's so important.
Keep in mind.
Keep it in mind. It's always about your client.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. And, in thinking about trial and the trial work that you do and that you did and have done even as presiding as a judge, I know you love trials. What is it about trials that you love so much and personally, and then their importance in our society and at large?
What I love about a trial, it is a play. You're going to put on your best play, your best story for your client. The other side is going to do the same. And it is how well that play comes across to the jury that's going to make a difference. And watching these great trial lawyers, the way they work, and I'm gonna regress a little bit.
Yeah, go for it.
Don Brown. Many people never heard of his name. He was a great trial lawyer. He probably had close to 500 trials under his belt. Jeez. Medical malpractice. He got pretty much ousted from his firm. And so he came to Tino, who was also a National ABOTA member, and said, Tino, I need a place to, help practice law. Well, come on over and work with us. And so Don Brown was already up in age, didn't know how to prepare a case. So I'm sitting there working my tail off trying to get Ben Malcase ready for him. And he goes to trial again in front of Judge Kayashima. It was a 2-week trial. I don't know if you remember Judge Kayashima.
No, I don't.
Okay, he was a tough old bird. But I remember that there were 2 younger lawyers, excellent lawyers. That one defended the hospital, one defended the doctor. And I was there for the whole time because Tino wanted me. I had to report to Florentino all the time. And I would tell him every day, I said, Tino, Don's getting killed. Every objection is getting sustained. The jury's getting frustrated. And I'm like, I think we're going to lose this one. And he says, John, you just hang out. If he needs any help, you help him out. And I'm like, I was rolling my eyes.
Sure.
There's no way we're going to win. And you could clearly see the confidence in the other 2 lawyers. I'm not going to mention their names. I do not remember I know who they are, but they were good lawyers. They're still good lawyers. And so come to closing argument, and it was a doctor who had committed malpractice on our client. And Don Brown gets up there and he says, I want to thank you for letting me represent my client. And I know it's been difficult for you because you've heard, I try to get something out, and you always got an objection. And then, of course, they both stand up and they go, objection. And Don Brown looks at the jurors and he goes, and Kayashima admonished Don Brown, Mr. Brown, you know not to do that.
Yeah.
And he says, look, this is real simple. Dr. So-and-so, he's a good person. He really is. He just made this one mistake this one time. In fact, I actually like him because I think him and we go to the same barber because they both were bald. And the jury laughed. They were like done.
Yeah.
And he says, he just made this one mistake. And unfortunately, he needs to pay for it. And John Brown gave him a number. The jury was out 2 hours. They came back exactly with that number, 12 zip. Jeez. And these younger, hotshot lawyers who thought they had it in the bag, they probably were reporting it to their principals. We got this one. We beat the great Don Brown. Yeah. And I was shocked.
Didn't know what hit them.
They had no idea that he was playing them the whole time. Jeez. And see, that's things like that you don't. Strategy, wow. You don't have any idea. Tino Garza would do the same thing time and time again. As lawyers were taught in these seminars, don't do this, don't do that, do this, do that. And yeah, for the most part, fundamentals, principles, yeah, that's right. But there's certain times when you need to get away from that. And we had a death case. Tino had a death case involving a father of 4 children. One was a minor and 3 adult children. And we had the state involved. We had the manufacturer of the sign and also the maintainer of the sign. And what had happened, it was on the 15th. We're in a very windy day like we are. Back then, that's what it was, a very windy day. And as a result of them not properly maintaining this humongous sign that went over the freeway, it came down and crashed on our client's truck and killed him.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. And so it was like such a sad case. The night before we do closing argument, Tino dismissed the manufacturer of the sign and the maintainer of the sign, and he only left the state of California. And there's a golden rule: you never have an empty chair defendant because they're going to point they're going to point fingers at that empty chair. Tino settled around them for a small amount, less than $1 million. So I'm like beside myself.
What's going on?
So of course we were doing our little drink after work, and I had my napkin out, and I said, Tino, why did you dismiss the two of, I believe, they're most important defendants in this case?
Yeah.
And he's eating a peanut, eats his peanut, takes a sip of his drink, and he says, the state can't argue damages. And I'm like, what is he talking about? You know, I had no clue what he's talking about. Closing argument next day. Tino gets up there, and I had told him, what he would always do is he would make us write on a napkin what we felt the case was worth before the verdict came in.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so I put an amount down. I put $3.25 million. Tom Garza put $1.75 million. Yeah. And he looks at those numbers and he goes, and I go, my number is huge.
Yeah.
I go, $3.25 million. It's a lot for back then.
Yeah.
He goes, that's a huge amount. And he goes, okay. Tino had never, ever used the word huge. Okay. Again, brilliant that he is. He gets up there and asks the jury, I have four kids. I want $1 million for each kid. $4 million. He goes, I know that's a huge amount. And I go, that's my word. He goes, but this is a huge loss. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Jury started at $4 million and ended up going higher.
Oh, wow.
The state lawyer never, ever said, that's too much, that's not enough. He didn't know how to argue damages. Mm-hmm. So there you go. A guy who's been in there 200, 300 times in that ring. Yeah. He has already felt out this lawyer, and he knew what this lawyer could do and what he couldn't do and what he would do and what he wouldn't do. Mm-hmm. And I was just amazed. Yeah. Absolutely amazed. It was just, you getting mentors like that is the best.
I love that you talked about fundamentals, and then sometimes you do have to disregard those, but that I think it's that second half of the quote that I read from you earlier, which is, first is the fundamentals, and then you build skills upon those, right? And the fundamentals take you to a place that you otherwise wouldn't get to if you didn't have the fundamentals. And then once there, you apply skills above them and build upon them. You talking about Tino Garza and these. I love these stories. I could sit down and listen to this all day. Me too. And one thing that sticks out about you, and also I see the tutelage as well from Tino Garza, is that you have a very high emotional IQ, emotional intelligence, and it's 99th percentile, right? It's just that you connect with people so well. Everywhere that you go, and you break down walls of people. Everywhere you go, plaintiff, defendant, both sides of the V. You could be speaking to someone with tremendous wealth and someone who is in a disparate position, right? And you speak to them the same, equally connect with anybody and everybody. This might be an unfair question, but is that something that you've cultivated consciously, or maybe at some point realized that that's something that you did? And what are some things for people to go, hey, I want to be able to connect more with folks? What is it that I need to sort of tap into inside of me to be able to do that?
20 years of practice and 20 years as a judge, what I was able to understand is if you can connect with people, you're going to be successful. And you need to sometimes throw out a little comment to that person and see if they bite. Sometimes you need to throw out a name drop to see if they bite. A place or a firm that they used to work with. Because once you get a connection, you're in. They want to talk to you. And that is critical. And so just give you an idea. Yesterday, it's a Zoom meeting. Not brand new, but he's a pretty new judge, Judge Nunez from Imperial Valley. I knew he was from Imperial Valley. I didn't know him. But after I saw that he said he was from Imperial Valley, and I sent him an email. And I said, oh my gosh, my roommate, Don Emanuele, he was from Brawley. He was a farmer. And on weekends, I would go down there and I used to party with them. And I got to meet all these people and I named them all off. The Padillas, the Rodriguezes, all these names. And he goes, oh my gosh, my mom used to work for Padilla and she used to work for Uyola. And so there was a connection there.
Yeah.
And now he wants to get together.
Yeah.
Because we have things that we can talk about. And it was a simple 5-minute, 4-minute email, but I love that. And as you get older, Kenny and Sharon, you're going to see that the world is a lot smaller. It's a small place. You're going to run into people and say, oh my gosh, you know so-and-so. Oh my gosh. And once you get that connection, it's worth so much.
Yeah.
And sometimes, because I am a little travieso, a little troublemaker, like they say, it's okay staying on the right side of trouble. I will throw out something to see if it sticks. And sometimes my wife will hit me. Sometimes Marina, my beautiful daughter, will say, Dad, are you crazy? Why are you doing that? I go, I just want to see. I want to see what I can get away with. And sometimes they like that. And I'll give you one example. And I had my application in for judgeship. And at the time, the local representative that was on this committee for selecting them, he was very conservative. He was very well connected, but he did not like Democrats. He did not like Democrats. And so I needed to get in and get an interview with him.
Okay.
My friend, my good friend, he had his wife, best friend, worked as his secretary. So without him knowing, she made an appointment for me. And so I got there early. I waited until 9:30. He shows up, and he was a very big guy, 6'7" and about 400 pounds. He just growled at me when I went by. I said, good morning. He goes, ugh. And he closes the door and he goes, how did he get in here? And so I had to wait another 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, this is how it's going to be.
Yeah.
This is how it's going to be. That's okay. I'm in the lion's den. Let's go. So the very first question when I sat down, he didn't even tell me to sit down. Very first question is, what have you done for Republicans lately? That was his very first question. And I said, well, I've done enough, but I'm going to ask you first. What have you done for Democrats? Your constituency is not just Republican. It's also Democrats. So don't you think you owe it to Democrats too? And don't you think you owe it to this Democrat to give me a little bit of time? And let me tell you something else. I helped Rod Pacheco. He's a Republican. I donated to his campaign. Whose campaign of a Democrat have you donated to? And he looked at me, big guy, right? And he goes, I like you.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah.
But the point is, I said, you know what? I'm going to go for it. I had to. He's either going to throw me out or he's going to get a little respect, because sometimes you need to do that. You need to stick up for yourself. Yeah, but again, all that is just comes with a lot of experience and feeling people out, talking to them, seeing if you're getting some type of connection with them. And that is so important as a trial lawyer. Connecting with the jury, connecting with the judge, connecting with the staff, connecting with the other side with integrity. That's so important, because the jury, no matter how we talk about bias and no biases, they want to be on the winning side. And the winning side is the most reasonable side. And if you are reasonable in your demand and you're doing the best you can for your client, you use your own style, because everybody has different styles, you'll be successful. And the money will come.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And I love the practical application of, or how we can practically apply emotional intelligence, finding connection with people. Because oftentimes, people want to become better conversationalists or be able to make friends better. But the way that you described it, it's making a connection, and that connection is valuable. Somebody feels something with that, and it's not just I want to network to network. No, I want to make a connection with people that is real.
Right, and to even go further about that networking thing, my daughter, she like whenever we're out and about at these conventions, and I'm like at a reunion.
Yeah.
I'm having a ball. I see everybody. I'm hugging them. I'm kissing them. I don't care if you're defense or plaintiff. It doesn't matter. I have a connection with them, and I want to let them know that I still love them. I love people. I really do. And I tell my kids, there's something good in everybody. And if you can draw that out of them, they'll feel better, you'll feel better, and you will make a connection.
I love that. Yeah.
You can. There's a lot of people you run into, they're negative. But then you start thinking about something, you can turn something positive into their mindset.
Yeah.
And sometimes it gets them out of that rut.
Yeah.
And which is a great thing.
I love that. I love that, just being able to draw something good out of people as well, and they'll love that.
And it's not fake.
Yeah.
If I'm fake, then I shouldn't be doing it. It's not fake. I tell people, like yesterday, during these horrible fires, I know I'm in Oceanside. I told my daughter, because some of her colleagues, their houses, they had to be evacuated. I told her, I will go get all the fire extinguishers that I can here locally, and I'll drive them up there because they're wonderful people, and I want to try to help them. I don't know if I get in, but at least I'll have those fire extinguishers for them.
Yeah.
But I like I said, I love people. I really do.
Yeah. Perhaps I know we're running up against our time here, and we thank you so much for giving us of your valuable time. Being appointed to the bench as a judge in 2001, I want to talk a little bit about how that happened. And I think in part, this being the art of purpose, we've learned how you found this first half, maybe purpose of your life, right, as a trial attorney. And then that also changed, right, in the middle of your career with this judgeship coming up, and how you found a higher purpose for yourself. So did you ever think about becoming a judge even as after you'd become an attorney?
Never.
Yeah.
Never. And I didn't think I had the capability of being a judge. I always looked at them, super smart, great education, and I'm like, phew. But I love being a trial lawyer. I loved arguing cases in front of people. It was great. But I was trying this case, McCown versus Walmart,
which is a big case.
My vicarious liability case that went to Supreme Court, and I noticed during my closing argument that half the courtroom was full of judges from the courthouse, and I'm like, that's weird.
Yeah.
And of course, it was Kayashima who told me from the beginning that this case was a piece of shit, and that I shouldn't even be trying this case. But I looked out there and I'm like, wow. Finished my closing argument. Defense does their closing. Jury comes back that afternoon with a substantial verdict, and I'm like, yes, we're going to celebrate.
Yeah.
So Florentino and Tom, they come over, and we're in Rancho, and we go to, I think it was Applebee's or something like that, and we're sitting there drinking beer, and the presiding judge, John Kennedy at the time, he comes up, and who was in the audience, by the way, he comes up and sits down with us, and Florentino goes, John, what are you doing? He goes, well, you know what? I want your partner here, put his application in. And Florentino goes, get out of here.
Yeah, I'll take him.
We're sitting there tearing this up. We're tearing up this place, this community, and you want to take him?
Yeah.
No, get out of here.
Yeah.
And so I was like taken aback, to be honest with you. And I went home and I told my wife, and I'm like, the money that I'm making now as a trial lawyer, yeah, it has its ups and downs, but it's not, as a judge, it's not even going to be half as much. And my wife is like, you have to do what makes you happy. And so I'm like, okay. So 3-4 months go by and I'm arguing. In 1 week, I'm arguing 2 motions for summary judgment and another discovery motion. And the motions for summary judgment, I got beat on. And I would ask the judge, Your Honor, please tell me why, tell me why you're ruling the way you, and they clearly would not tell me because all they were doing is reading from a yellow piece of paper. And I'm like, I was very upset because my client's case was out the door.
Yeah, and that's what matters.
And so I go back and I tell Tino what happened, and he's like, they're reading the research memo. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? Instead of doing their own homework, I get it. Research attorneys are important, but you need to do your own homework.
Yeah.
And that really upset me. And I had to appeal the cases to come back and win them, to come back again, spend $10,000 to do that. And that really made me angry. I said, some of these judges are lazy. And so I thought to myself, you know what? I think I can do a lot more as a judge. I can do a lot better than them.
Yeah.
And so I talked to my wife again, and I said, you know what? I think I'm going to put my application in. And that's how it started.
It's funny because that was going to be my follow-up. What were those things that you were considering? And thank you for giving us not just the factors that you were considering, but another one of those life events that happened to you, right? That sort of created the path for you, right? Because you saw something once again, like earlier in your life with, your father and your uncle going through those experiences, and that sort of placed something inside of you. That eventually set you on that path. Here, similar as well, right, is that you had this injustice to your client. And interestingly enough, I will say, I'll note this just as I've been hearing your stories, is that most of, or all of these important inflections in your life have been something that has happened to somebody else, right?
Sure.
It's an injustice that you have observed. Not so much, and I love this because it goes back to how much you care about people, right? Because it wasn't that somebody did something wrong to me. Because even in you describing the story, one way to tell the story that you just told us right now with your client would be, the judge ruled against me and this shouldn't have happened. That was unfair. They didn't pay attention to my arguments. The way you told this story, which is true to who you are, is my client was the one that was disserviced here because they didn't pay attention as they should have. They didn't do the research, and my client's case was thrown out, and they're the ones that suffered. And it's you looking out for people and being internalizing the injustice that's happened to other people, whether it's your family, whether it's your clients, whether it's somebody else that you don't even know but care about, right? And those have created the paths for you as well. And you've taken up the mantle and fought for fairness in the courtroom, fairness in trial, fairness to your clients, and fairness for our community at large. Okay. So I don't know if it's something that you considered before, but I guess as I put that, I'd say thank you, because you're looking out for everybody when you do that. Because in a decision that you made for your client there and that inspired you, it's something that you've now, lives that you've changed over the course of your time on the bench.
Well, thank you, but I never made it about myself. Mm-hmm. It's not about myself. It's about the injustice of the other people. And that's what I will fight for to the bitter end. And I don't care if I get a penny. I do things for free. I do programs for free because I think education is so important to so many people, especially right now with social media going crazy the way it is, and all these fact checks or not fact checks, and what's the truth and what's not the truth. One thing that I see, and I've seen more so, is our biases have taken over what we're thinking and what we believe in. Instead of looking at the facts and setting aside your biases as much as you can, because you can't set all your biases down. It's impossible. But set aside your biases and just try to let the facts determine your decision making. Don't let your bias, because I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican, therefore whatever you say, I don't believe. That's not what we should be about. And it's the same thing with the jury. The elephant in the courtroom is bias. Is 100% it's bias. And people don't want to talk about it, but it's there. And that's what makes a difference between a huge verdict and a little verdict. Is these lawyers are so good on playing on people's biases, even though it's not something that you should be doing. It should be about the law and the facts, but they do it in such a nice, gentle way. They're able to massage these people's biases to where they get them like they're little cheerleaders for them. They root for them. They want this person to win. That's the success of great lawyers. And it's something that I've seen, but it's not about the lawyer. It's not about the judge. It's about the people who've been wronged. And that's what I think, if you get any takeaway from this, that's what it's all about. Because the money comes, whatever you want. Awards, I don't care about awards, but they'll come too. But it's not that's not why you work. I'm not a resume builder, so to speak. I do things out of my heart, what I want, what I think, to try to keep ourselves up, have access and fairness, and people believing in our system. Right now, our system is under attack, big time. And it's kind of like, you got this. I was listening to a video yesterday, and these people are saying judges are political. They're political. They're political, and that's not what we are. That's not what we do. We talked about doing the right thing. It's not political. We do the right things because we have to follow the law. And it can be difficult sometimes. And sometimes you get a lot of criticism.
But it's the right thing to do. It's the thing that should be done.
At least try to do the right thing. Sometimes it's impossible. As much as you want it to happen, sometimes it's not. But if you give it a try, sometimes you get lucky.
And you walk into the unknown doing the right thing.
That's right.
Well, Your Honor, thank you so much. You're a man of honor, a man of integrity, and a man of the people. That much is clear. Thank you so much for your time for giving us of your time and sharing your story, opening up and sharing that with us. We're very honored that you did that and be able to share that with all our listeners.
Well, and before you leave, I just want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to express myself and let you know who I am. Let the community know if they don't know me. Let them know who I am, and to thank you guys. What you're doing right now is so important. And again, it's all about educating the community, making people understand. Hey, we're normal. We're normal people, and we're here to help you. We're not people here to hurt you.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Well, thank you, Your Honor. And to all the listeners, thank you once again for tuning in to this episode of Art of Purpose. If this has been an episode that has inspired you and helped you, and I know it has, I'd ask that you share that with someone that you know, with a friend of yours, a family member. Our whole idea is to be able to share people's stories, inspire you, inspire others, and collectively draw something good out of each one of us and make our community better. So we'll see you next time on Art of Purpose.
Thank you.